Step away from that door right now. What do you think you're doing?
I'm unlocking my office. I work here. Is there a problem, officer?
Your office? This is a government building. I need to see ID and proof you're authorized to be here.
I have identification, but I don't need to prove I'm authorized.
This is being recorded. I am.
At exactly 6:47 a.m. on a Monday in Greenville County, South Carolina, Sheriff's Deputy Marcus Webb thought he was just doing his job. Dispatch had called about a suspicious person trying to get into the county administration building before business hours. He pulled up and saw exactly what he expected. A black woman in casual clothes, key in hand, standing at a side entrance, looking, at least to him, like she didn't belong. What Webb didn't realize was he was about to make the worst mistake of his career, and in just over half an hour, he'd trigger an investigation that would change the entire sheriff's department. The woman he was about to arrest wasn't just anybody. She was Kesha Williams, the elected district attorney of Greenville County, the boss of every prosecutor, the one who decided if deputies like Webb faced charges when they crossed the line. She'd sent 14 cops to prison for corruption and civil rights violations. Now, in the next 32 minutes, Deputy Webb was about to handcuff the one person who could not only end his career, but his freedom. Before I go on, take a second. Tell us where you're watching from. Drop your city, your state, your country in the comments. Because what happened to Kesha Williams could happen anywhere. And the only reason this story made headlines is because she had the power to fight back. Most people in her shoes don't. If you care about accountability, if you think people in power need to be held responsible, hit that subscribe button now. You don't want to miss what happens when someone arrests the only person who can actually take them down. Kesha Williams wasn't your average 43-year-old black woman in South Carolina. While most folks her age were working up the career ladder and planning for retirement, Kesha was running the largest prosecutor's office in the state outside of Charleston. She'd won the district attorney election by a landslide, now overseeing 37 prosecutors, 23 investigators, 41 support staff, and an $8.4 million budget. Her office handled around 12,000 cases a year, and her conviction rate was 87%, one of the highest in the state. She hadn't gotten there on luck or connections. Kesha grew up in Greenville's poorest neighborhood, raised by a single mom who worked 2 jobs, days at a textile mill, nights cleaning offices. Some weeks, dinner was rice and beans, 4 nights in a row. She wore her cousin's hand-me-downs to school and learned to keep her head down when other kids teased her for shoes that were 2 years out of style. But her mother drilled it into her. Education was the way out. So Kesha studied. Straight A's all through school, started working part-time at 14, fast food, retail, babysitting, whatever paid. She put away every dollar she could, earned a full ride to the University of South Carolina, majored in criminal justice, graduated summa cum laude with a 3.97 GPA, and then made it into law school, working as a research assistant to cover what loans didn't. She made law review, graduated in the top 10%. Her first job after law school was at the Greenville County District Attorney's Office as an assistant DA. The starting pay was just $42,000 a year. She could have made triple at a private law firm, but she wasn't in it for the money. She started in misdemeanors, shoplifting, DUIs, assaults. She won 92% of her first year's cases, got promoted to felonies in just 18 months, and soon she was handling robberies, sexual assaults, drug cases, gang prosecutions, and public corruption. She put away a serial rapist, sent a corrupt city councilman to federal prison, and got a reputation for being meticulous. She prepped cases like she was going to war, knew every detail, could quote witness statements by heart, always ready with a counter for every defense trick. But Kesha wasn't just tough on criminals. She was fearless about prosecuting bad cops, too. In 14 years, she personally handled 11 police misconduct cases, convicting deputies who stole drugs, sending a sergeant to prison for sexual assault, prosecuting detectives for planting evidence, even charging SWAT members for killing an unarmed man and lying about it. She took on deputies who beat a handcuffed suspect and put all 3 in prison. The police union hated her. They backed her opponent in the DA race, spent $47 grand attacking her as anti-police. It didn't work. Voters trusted her. She won 64% of the vote, even in white suburban districts. Folks knew she prosecuted the law, not the badge. As DA, she charged 7 more officers in 2 years. 3 pled guilty, 4 were waiting trial. She fired 2 of her own prosecutors for withholding evidence, created a conviction integrity unit to re-examine old cases, and freed 3 people who'd served a combined 38 years for crimes they didn't commit. But all that made enemies. Sheriff Buck Morrison, a 62-year-old department lifer, ran things his way, promoted the loyal, transferred the doubters, and turned a blind eye to racial bias. He and Kesha clashed hard when she charged one of his deputies. He accused her of betraying the people who keep the county safe. She told him her job was to prosecute crime, not protect criminals in uniform. After that, the relationship was ice cold. Deputies stopped cooperating. Buck went on local radio, calling her more interested in attacking law enforcement than protecting citizens. Kesha didn't care. She did her job. So that Monday morning, Kesha rolled in early, 6:45 instead of her usual 7:30. She was prepping for a huge public corruption trial that started in 3 days. She wanted the quiet to review her opening statement before anyone else arrived. She parked in her reserved spot, wearing jeans, a Clemson sweatshirt, sneakers. She grabbed her bag, laptop, trial folders, opening statement, witness notes, and walked to the southeast side entrance, the closest one to her office. Employees with keys could use side doors from 6 a.m. on. Kesha had a key, had used it hundreds of times. She slid the key in the lock. That's when she heard it. "Hey, step away from that door right now. What do you think you're doing?" She turned. A white deputy, late 30s, hand hovering near his weapon. His name tag, Webb. He'd been with the sheriff's office for 11 years, had 17 commendations for arrest, and 2 letters of reprimand for use of force. 9 use of force incidents, 8 involving black suspects, 1 Hispanic, none white. 5 complaints for racial profiling, all marked unfounded after 3-day investigations. Webb had gotten the radio call about a possible break-in at the admin building, saw a black woman in casual clothes with a key, and his mind made the leap. Potential burglary. Keisha kept calm. Years of handling police misconduct had taught her how these encounters could spiral. She kept her hands visible. "I'm unlocking my office," she said, voice level. "I work here. Is there a problem, officer?" Webb sized her up, unconvinced. "Your office? This is a government building. I need to see ID and proof you're authorized to be here." Keisha's prosecutor instincts lit up. He hadn't stated a reasonable suspicion of any crime, just demanded ID for a woman with a key. "I have my ID," she said, firmer, "but I don't have to prove I'm authorized to enter my own office. What's your reasonable suspicion?" Most people don't use phrases like reasonable suspicion. Webb registered that this woman was different, but instead of getting careful, he got defensive. "Don't get cute with me. We got reports of someone trying to break in. Turn around and put your hands behind your back." That was the moment. If he'd just asked to see her ID, she'd have shown him her driver's license and DA badge, and they'd both go about their day. But Webb didn't ask. He gave an order. Handcuffs out, arresting a woman for unlocking her own office. Kesha kept her voice controlled, even as anger simmered. "Reports from whom?" "I'm the district attorney for this county. My name is on the door you're blocking, and you're about to violate Fourth Amendment law on camera." She pointed at the security camera, red light blinking. Webb hesitated for a beat. "You're what?" "District Attorney Kesha Williams. Office is on the second floor. I've worked here 16 years. You're detaining me without reasonable suspicion, which violates the Fourth Amendment and your department's own policy." Most deputies would have backed off immediately, but Webb, trained by a sheriff who saw the DA as the enemy, just doubled down. "I don't care who you say you are. Right now, you're a suspect in an investigation. You're under arrest for trespassing and resisting. You should have just cooperated." Kesha's eyes narrowed. "I want your name and badge number. I want your supervisor called immediately. And I want you to understand, in about 5 minutes, you're going to realize you just arrested your boss's boss. Everything you're doing is being recorded, and it's going to cost you your career." Webb ignored her, handcuffing her tight. Too tight. She said so. He didn't respond. As he walked her to his car, a white man in his 50s pulled into the lot carrying a briefcase. "Officer, what's going on here?" he asked. "Official police business, sir. Step back." But the man recognized Kesha. "Kesha, is that you?" "Tom, Deputy Webb is arresting me for trying to enter my office." Tom Patterson, the county clerk, turned to Webb, shocked. "This is District Attorney Kesha Williams. She works here. I've worked with her for 16 years. Webb went pale. "You know her?" "Know her? She's the district attorney. She has every right to be here." Now Webb finally hesitated. "I need to verify this." "Verify it however you want," Kesha said coldly. "But these cuffs are coming off, or I'm adding unlawful restraint to the list of charges." Webb fumbled with the keys, unlocked the cuffs. Kesha rubbed her wrists, took photos of the red marks for evidence. "I'm going to need your report on my desk by end of business today," she told him, voice steady and strong. "And the name of whoever called in the report, the dispatch recording. Your supervisor needs to be here, now." Webb looked lost. "Ma'am, I was just doing my job." "Your job is to enforce the law, not arrest people for unlocking their own offices," she replied. "You need reasonable suspicion before detaining anyone. You failed at all of that. Now call your supervisor." Webb radioed in, hands shaking. Sergeant Rodriguez arrived minutes later, immediately recognized Keisha. "Ms. Williams, what happened?" "Your deputy arrested me for entering my own office," Keisha said flatly. "Handcuffed me for 7 minutes, all without reasonable suspicion, without checking my ID, despite my repeated explanations." Rodriguez turned to Webb, clearly furious. Webb tried to explain. He got a call. She looked suspicious, wasn't dressed like an employee, got defensive when asked. Keisha cut in. "Asserting my rights isn't being defensive." Rodriguez apologized. Keisha was unmoved. "I want answers. Who made the call?" It turned out the call was anonymous, reporting a black woman in casual clothes acting suspicious at the southeast entrance. No mention of any crime, just that a black woman was there with a key. Keisha shook her head. So someone saw a black woman with a key and called 911. And neither dispatch nor Deputy Webb questioned whether someone with a key might work here. She entered her office, leaving Webb and Rodriguez behind, and started documenting everything. Every word, every action, every violation. She called her chief deputy, Marcus Chen, and told him to open a civil rights investigation. She'd be the victim, Marcus would handle prosecution. She called the county administrator, demanded a meeting. She called the FBI Civil Rights Division and told them what happened. Said she suspected this wasn't an isolated incident. By 9 a.m., the story leaked. The local paper ran, "District Attorney arrested outside her own office claims racial profiling." By noon, it was on CNN and trending on Twitter as #ArrestedWhileBlack. Security footage provided by the furious county administrator showed Keisha unlocking the door, calmly explaining herself, and being handcuffed anyway. 6.8 million views in 24 hours. Civil rights advocates called it textbook profiling. A black woman with a key trying to enter her own office is not reasonable suspicion. That's racism, one law professor said on TV. Sheriff Morrison held a press conference, defending Webb as just following protocol, saying, "The fact that she was the DA doesn't change the process." Keisha watched and realized Morrison had just handed her the evidence she needed. Proof that the culture was rotten from the top down. She got the dispatch recording just before 5 p.m. It confirmed everything. The anonymous caller, Sharon Mitchell, a white woman who lived 3 blocks away, said she saw someone who didn't look like they belonged. Keisha called her. "What about my appearance made you think I was committing a crime?" Mitchell fumbled, couldn't answer. "What you did led to my unlawful arrest," Keisha said. "You should think carefully about why seeing a black woman with a key made you call the police." Keisha's office, not the sheriff's department, opened the investigation into Webb. Marcus Chen pulled Webb's stop data for 11 years. 1,031 out of 1,247 stops were black individuals, 83%, in a county that's 31% black. Webb searched black people more often, found evidence less often, arrested more, and had a third of his black arrests dismissed as too weak. 5 profiling complaints in 11 years, all closed in under 3 days with no real investigation. Chen checked the entire department's training records. 0 hours of required anti-bias training. State law said it was mandatory, but the department ignored it. This wasn't just Webb. 28% of the deputies had stop/search patterns showing significant racial bias. The problem was everywhere. Keisha reviewed the data, then told Chin to file charges: deprivation of rights under color of law, false arrest, unlawful restraint, and open a broader civil rights investigation into the department. "If we find a pattern," she said, "we're going to the Department of Justice." Sheriff Morrison pushed back hard, calling the charges politically motivated. But Kesha answered with charts and numbers at her own press conference. "This is not about one arrest. It's about a pattern of racial profiling affecting hundreds of Black residents. That's discrimination, and it's going to stop." Webb's trial started 7 months later. The evidence was overwhelming: security footage, dispatch recording, expert testimony, and witnesses. The defense claimed it was just a mistake. The prosecution closed with, "This wasn't an honest mistake. Deputy Webb could have asked for ID. He could have listened. He did none of those things because he saw a Black woman and assumed she was a criminal. That's not a mistake. That's a civil rights violation." The jury deliberated for 11 hours, then came back unanimously, guilty on all counts. Webb got 18 months in federal prison, lost his job and certification, and had to pay Keisha $75,000 in damages. But it didn't end there. The FBI investigation Keisha sparked lasted 14 months, covering 5 years of stops and arrests, over 22,000 stops, nearly 5,000 searches. Their 143-page report found systemic discrimination. Black residents stopped and searched at triple the rate. Complaints dismissed without real review. Zero anti-bias training. All enabled by Sheriff Morrison. The DOJ sued. The county settled, agreeing to sweeping reforms: mandatory bias training, a civilian oversight board, independent monitor, and 5 years of federal oversight. Sheriff Morrison retired 3 weeks after the consent decree. Everyone knew the real reason. Kesha Williams didn't just win her case. She forced real, lasting change. The deputy who arrested her went to prison. The sheriff lost his job. The department had to change. And for the first time, hundreds of Black residents in Greenville County saw proof. It wasn't just their imagination. It was real. It was documented. And it was finally going to stop.